Nice or kind? I'm not sure which one I should be on the regular. Let's talk about it. All right, so if I asked you a simple question, would you rather be nice or a nice person or a kind person? Um, I think most people would probably say both reasonably. And for most of my life, I would have said those words are pretty much mean the same thing. But the older I've gotten, the more I've realized they're really not. In fact, sometimes being nice actually keeps us from being kind, believe it or not. Think about that for a second. Being nice usually asks, how do I avoid upsetting this person? Being kind is, though, asks, what is actually best for this person? Those are two very different questions, and they have very different answers, and they actually require quite a bit of a different thought process. I think many of us were raised to be nice. Like don't rock the boat, don't make people uncomfortable. That's a big one. Don't disappoint anyone because nobody really likes to disappoint anybody. Keep the peace when you can. Smile, say yes, be agreeable, avoid conflict. We talked about that in the past. Those aren't bad values, by the way. They're really not. But somewhere along the way, many of us started believing that avoiding discomfort was the same thing as showing love. It's not. Sometimes avoiding discomfort is actually avoiding honesty. Let me give you an example. Imagine your spouse asks, "Is everything okay?" You know something has been bothering you for weeks, but instead of answering honestly, you say, "Yeah, I'm fine." But why do you answer that way? Why do you say, "Yeah, I'm fine"? Because maybe you don't want to start an argument. You don't want to ruin the evening by bringing up the thing that maybe has been bothering you. You don't want them to feel bad about the thing. On the surface, that sounds nice, but is it kind? Not really. Not really at all. Because now you've traded temporary comfort for growing distance. Kindness says, I love you enough to tell you what's going on because I don't want resentment to grow between us. That's uncomfortable. Uh, but it's also honest, and honesty builds trust. Let's look at another example. Imagine you're leading a team. One of your employees continues making the same mistake. You notice it, so does everybody else because it's hard to hide those mistakes, but you don't say anything because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Common. Again, that feels nice, but over time, what do you think actually ends up happening? The reality is that they never improve. They might lose opportunities because people don't want to work with them. Eventually, someone else has to have this difficult conversation. Kindness would have stepped in sooner, not to embarrass them, but to help them grow. Or another example, maybe it's a friendship. Your friend is making choices that are hurting them. You can see it, so can everybody else, but you stay quiet because you say, it's not my place. I don't want to upset them. But, sometimes silence isn't kindness. Sometimes silence protects our comfort more than it protects our relationships. A kind friend doesn't control, a kind friend doesn't judge, but a kind friend is willing to have an honest conversation when it matters. Now, before we go any further into this honesty thing and kindness thing, let me be very clear that kindness is not permission to become brutally honest or to be an asshole. You've probably heard people say, well, I'm just telling it like it is. Usually that's not kindness. That's simply honesty without compassion. Real kindness requires both truth and empathy. You can tell someone the truth while still protecting their dignity. You can disagree with someone while still honoring their worth. That's what kindness looks like. I think it also applies to ourselves. How often do we say yes when every part of us wants to say no? We talked about this last time. We don't want to disappoint anyone. We don't want people to think that we're selfish. So we overcommit, we stay exhausted, we neglect our own needs, and we call that being nice. But are we really being kind to ourselves? Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is set a boundary. Now you know how to do that. Sometimes the kindest thing you can say is I can't. Not because you don't care, but because actually you do care. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is this. Being nice is often seeks approval, but being kind seeks what's best. Approval keeps everyone comfortable today. Kindness builds healthy relationships tomorrow. Those aren't always the same thing. So for now, I want you to challenge yourself with one simple question. Before your next conversation. Before your next automatic yes, before you avoid saying something that's been weighing on you, pause and ask yourself this question. Am I choosing what's comfortable or what's kind? You may discover they're the same. That's possible. But you may also discover that genuine kindness sometimes requires courage, it requires honesty, it requires vulnerability. And yes, sometimes it disappoints people. You will disappoint people if you take the kind route versus the nice route periodically. But the strongest relationships aren't built on pretending everything is okay. They're built on trust, they're built on respect, and they're built on people who care enough to tell each other the truth with compassion. So don't just strive to be nice, strive to be kind, because the nicest person in the room isn't always the kindest. Sometimes the kindest person is simply the one willing to have the conversation everyone else is avoiding. So, hey, if this message resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. The email to contact me is right there on the screen, as it always is. Think about a time when someone told you something that you needed to hear, even though it wasn't easy. Looking back, did that conversation hurt your relationship or did it strengthen it? Share your thoughts in the comments below if you'd like. And if you found today's conversation valuable, I'd love for you to subscribe. Join me on my next topic where we continue exploring conversations and thoughts that really help us grow, not just as leaders, but as people. So go out there and have the best day that you can. All right.